Time now to debate some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have State Representative Doug Owens and former House Speaker Greg Hughes. Gentlemen, great to have both of you on the show. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
Let's start off with obviously the big story of the week. President Biden expected to make a stop here in the state of Utah. Representative Owens, let's start with you. It's nothing new for the Commander-in-Chief to stop here in our state. Most of the recent presidents have done that. But talk about the significance, especially when you talk about a Democratic president making a stop in a red state like Utah.
I think it is significant, Glenn. It's always great to have the president. I welcome him here. It's great to have his attention to our great state and to see the vibrant community and the great place that we have. I hope it'll help sensitize him to some of our issues. There's some things I'd like to visit with him about him if I get him for a minute while he's here.
Can you tell us anything about that? Are you going to get him for a minute when he's here?
I hope so. We're working on it. I'm working on it. Yeah, absolutely. But I want to get some of that Inflation Reduction Act money for drought relief for the Great Salt Lake and some other things we need here.
Okay, yeah, we'll dig into that a little bit more. Greg, let's bring you in now. The president coming here to the state of Utah. What do you expect, and what do you see as the significance of it?
It's always a good day for Utah when we see the President of the United States visit our state. There are unique issues that nothing like being on the ground and bringing that perspective helps inform decision making. So I look forward to that visit. I think some of the mandates that the Biden administration is pushing are impacting our utilities like Rocky Mountain Power in terms of timelines and coal-fired power plants and some of our electric grid. I don't know that it squares up, frankly, with Utah and our trajectory with some of the mandates that have been handed down. I think that hopefully this visit is one where you can kind of connect those dots and we can see some pragmatic solutions out of that administration. Okay,
Representative, we also have a huge election year coming up in 2024. Could this have any significance as far as a campaign style trip?
I think it could. I don't know that we're in a place yet where Utah is going to be in play in 2 years, but who knows, you know, and we're certainly going to be trending that direction in the long run, that Utah will become more of a purple state and could go either way. So I hope, but I hope it'll help Utahns see that a pragmatic person of either party can have a lot of influence for good in this state and do a lot that will build up Utah's economy and other things.
I get your point about 2024 and whatnot, but is there money to be had here for a Democratic candidate when it comes to campaigning?
Well, Joe Biden has proven himself to be a very able politician, and any able politician will tell you fundraising is part of the game. I understand that he may be doing some fundraising while he's here, and you know, that's something to be expected anytime a politician is on the road.
All right, Greg, weigh into that as far as a campaign viewpoint.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I can't stand the color purple. It just brings fear. I never want to think of Utah as purple. However, the green, the fundraising that any candidate, as has been pointed out, our money spends here in Utah like anywhere else. And so you've seen candidates of both parties that come, presidential campaigns arrive for these fundraisers. And I think that for the Democrats and for President Biden, the fundraiser is probably, I think it's the only Republican state he's visiting. So I think that the fundraiser is probably a pretty important part of that tour of our state.
Yeah, and that is interesting to see how that has played out in our state of late. You know, candidates aren't just flying over the state of Utah anymore. They are coming here to get money. So that says something about the political landscape here as well. All right, let's dig into what we're expecting to hear from the president. He's going to be talking about the Inflation Reduction Act, which we brought up a little bit earlier, but specifically the impact of climate change. Representative, talk about how you assess climate change at this point and what some of the concerns are over that.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I think we're beyond the point where people are contesting whether or not there's climate change. This isn't something happening in South America. This isn't something happening in 20 years. It's happening right now, right here in Utah. I know our water planners. I know they're up at night worrying about a spring that starts earlier, a fall that ends later, hotter temperatures, more evaporation, more water needed to keep our lawns and our farms going. And so it's a real issue right here at home. We've got record-breaking temperatures left and right all around the world right now, but it does hit home right here. And our ski industry, as another example, is very worried about their future here. So I'm glad that the president's here and going to be emphasizing the climate measures that he and the Congress have undertaken in the Inflation Reduction Act. You know, there's going to be $1 billion in that legislation for Utah to transition to these greener forms of renewable energy. And I think that's a terrific thing for Utah. We got 50,000 people in Utah working in the clean energy sector. It's a quickly growing segment of our economy. And I think it's going to give us a real boost to have him here highlighting that.
Address, if you will, Greg brought up the mandates from the Biden administration a little earlier. Address how you see those.
Well, we can bypass that funding if we don't want to play. I think it's significant that most of the invitation most of the act takes form of an invitation to the state and our industries to take some financial incentives to direct the economy in ways where we as a people have decided, hey, we need to shift away from these greenhouse gas emitting forms of energy and move more rapidly to a sustainable future. So I view it as more of an invitation and not a mandate.
Greg, weigh in on climate change, assess how you see it at this point in time.
Yeah, some of those mandates come in the form of EPA, executive orders and mandates, maybe not the Inflation Reduction Act. But I will tell you, the part of the Inflation Reduction Act that has me bewildered is Senator Manchin from West Virginia wanted to see some real incentives for mining those rare minerals for batteries for our electric vehicles happen inside the United States. So we have some independence on our natural resources or on our rare minerals. Grand County, lots of lithium. You can get cobalt. You can get those rare minerals that we need for batteries, but we don't see any interest in the extraction side of the batteries required for electric vehicles. And so I think there's a disconnect on things like that. And maybe this visit, that can be discussed. If there are great jobs to be had, we know that the extraction industry is losing jobs as we're mining less coal here in Utah, clean coal, by the way. But there are minerals that we'll need for these cars, these electric vehicles. You can find that right here in the state of Utah. And I'd love to see those dots connected as well if we're serious about having more electric vehicles and less combustible engines. You're going to have to find those batteries or make those batteries somewhere, and I'd like to do it somewhere other than China.
Weigh in on that, Representative. Talk about what Greg describes as a disconnect there, but specifically around the electric vehicles. And also you could go into infrastructure on electric vehicles and say a lot of the same stuff as well.
Well, I think the legislature just recently passed a requirement to do a survey of where we do have those indispensable minerals in Utah, and I think the federal government is starting to change its tune on and allow more permitting on our public lands to obtain those minerals. I think President Biden has shown over and over he's interested in getting the supply chain ramped up and domesticated. Another example of that is the CHIP Act that keeps manufacturing of electronics here at home rather than in China. So he's very sensitive to those issues, and I would join the speaker in saying that it would be terrific to be able to visit with him about that and how we need some permitting changes here in Utah. But I think we can protect our environmental values. We've got the most beautiful of the 50 states right here, and we want to make sure we protect that. But there's going to be a role for extracting those needed minerals for the EVs and other things in the clean energy economy, for sure.
Okay, the Great Salt Lake was brought up a little earlier. Representative, you said that's one of the things you'd like to talk to the president about to get some money for that. Greg, your assessment on what we're seeing with the Great Salt Lake, how the state has responded, what else needs to be done in addressing that issue? I
got to hand to the representative. Boy, I don't know what they did in that last session, but we've had more precipitation. I mean, we're just seeing it literally rain down, and we're seeing the water levels rise everywhere. They passed some powerful legislation this last year. But honestly, I think that it is a natural resource. We've seen it. We've seen the lake shrink. It is absolutely responsible and good stewardship to look at those things. I think powers beyond our control have certainly helped in terms of snowpack, in terms of precipitation this year, which we desperately needed. And those are moments where we can take full advantage of it, or should. So I applaud the legislature for looking forward, looking for those things. Let's just make sure that the dollars we spend is the highest and best return. Sometimes there's a lot of pageantry around this issue, but where's the rubber really hitting the road? Are we seeing a return on those dollars spent, and what are the measurables? And I think those are things that the colleagues I served with and the example I'm seeing, you just got to start showing Utahns where those dollars are going that make their lives better, and we have a trajectory where we're going to keep enjoying a quality of life as we've had before, and even better.
Representative, let's say you do get the president's ear, you got a chance to talk to him about the Great Salt Lake. What will you say to him?
There is $200 billion in the, sorry, $2 billion, I beg your pardon, in the Inflation Reduction Act for drought relief in the West. And we ought to get a big chunk of that to help with the Great Salt Lake. You know, right up there with the Colorado River needs, Utah's got this incredible lake right on our doorstep on the Wasatch Front, where we're going to have serious air quality issues, wildlife issues, economic issues if we don't take care of that lake. And as just pointed out, we've had a huge boost this year with our winter, but that's not gonna last. We had a good year in 2017. We got right back into that 20-year downward trend of lower precipitation and higher evaporation. So we got to take care of that.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after this.